All right, guys, how's it going? Tonight we are doing this together, me and Joe. So, unfortunately, Mike and Jess had a lot going on with health department stuff that they're trying to finish up. I'm assuming for GAP certification that they're trying to get all that taken care of. So, Joe and I are flying high tonight, and he joined me at the very last minute. So, definitely thank him in the comments. I appreciate him coming out. It was kind of one of those things. I was looking for a co-host, and I thought, well, Joe's a pretty nice guy, so I figured bring him along for the ride. So Joe, how's your week been? I saw you got your really cool little washing machine going.
Yeah, that's been good. And yeah, like Andy said, about 45 minutes ago, Andy reached out to me. And I was maybe a quarter way into my grocery shopping trip for the week and ran through the store like that old game show with the shopping cart running over grandmas and stuff. So it was a fun time to get home and unpacked and back on the computer. So I'll be here for a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much, man. It'd be fun to have you on. So tonight we're going to be basically covering some stuff about the nutritional benefits of microgreens and also how they benefit both the local community and just food starved areas to a certain extent. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that tonight. So for me, this week was good. My mom, who actually has cancer up until Monday, had cancer surgery on Monday. She's went to Johns Hopkins, which worked out really well. We're lucky enough to have that 45 minutes away from our house. So she's in recovery mode. So any prayers and thoughts you guys can send, I would greatly appreciate that. So it was good to get past that. So she's, I guess, now 4 days cancer free, which is awesome. So hopefully that'll continue to go well. And we also got a lot of plumbing installed in our shop, the new place we're trying to move into this past week. Put in a triple sink, a hot water heater, a filtration system for our hoses, some hose connections, slop sink, all kinds of stuff, some backflow preventers. So it's been an expensive week, that's for sure, as far as plumbing goes, but we're moving along slowly but surely, thank God. So yeah, so let's see. So the first segment we've got, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say, I think it's real amazing when I think about the community we have here and how many growers have a personal connection to cancer. And
Yeah.
that's why so many of it, we're here today to talk about health benefits, right? And whether it's Mike and Jess and the story you just shared, Andy, about the time that I decided to do this full time. My father-in-law was diagnosed, and so it's one of those things that's scary that's out there, but there's ways to combat that thing, and it's been proven through science. Sulforaphane and other phytochemicals found in many microgreens are great ways to help combat with all the other technologies we have just in combination. So that's the only thing, as you were talking and reflecting, just thinking, I'm like, man, like I bet you every one of the people here in this chat probably has someone that may have influenced their decision to go on this journey into microgreens because of that very reason.
Yeah, I know plenty of people that have actually gone through recovery and started a microgreen business as a result because they wanted to help spread the nutritional awareness of what it can do to help prevent that. And Mike, obviously, who's typically on here, been through his own bout with cancer. And thank God he's cancer free at this point too, which is awesome. So it can definitely help. So we're going to get into some of that stuff tonight. So the first section we're going to go through is kind of talking about how much of a nutritional powerhouse microgreens are. Obviously, there's been studies that have shown they're up to 40 times more nutritious, specifically broccoli. That's definitely kind of the king of the king as far as nutritional value goes. But I read a recent study, and I was trying to find it before I got on here. And Joe, you may have seen it, where there was some attributes of red acre cabbage where it was actually up to 240 times more nutritious. I was trying to locate that study before I got on here, but I couldn't find it, unfortunately, because this was all kind of last minute throwing this all together. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not, if you had heard about that.
Not offhand, and and it all depends on like what is the particular phytochemical or flavonoid or whatever it is. It's interesting to hear like people say 40 times more nutritious when we're talking about one of multiple types. And I think when there's an article I'm going to post here in a little bit where it talks about cilantro, and it's like up to 80 times on the lutein or something like that. So there's many times more per weight, which is one of the things whenever I'm talking with customers, I make sure to emphasize it's not by volume, but by weight. If you take, an ounce of microgreens as opposed to an ounce of a mature vegetable, that's really what we're talking about. And yeah, I'm trying to be as specific as I can in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, I tend to tell people if they're looking at a 5, or 2 ounce pack of broccoli, for example, tell them, hey, some of that stuff in there is actually the nutritional equivalent of 5 pounds of adult broccoli. When you actually do the math and calculate it up 40 times. So it's pretty impressive when they hear that. So definitely a nice thing. But yeah, Joe's got a huge list of different scientific studies that he's put together in a Google Drive, document that he's actually going to share with everybody. So he posted it in the chat, in the private chat anyway. So Joe, if you want to, go ahead and feel free to copy and paste that in there, and then that way people can look at that reference. So definitely thank him for providing that tonight. It's a pretty cool thing to be able to put together. And if you haven't watched
Well,
his videos on how he actually put together his tray washing machine, make sure you visit Joe's YouTube page. Joe, if you want to post it in the comments, that'd be awesome. And that way you can check out. He posted 3 different videos, one kind of showing the overall reasoning for it, and then one showing the build and getting into heavy detail, measurements and everything. And then the third one was kind of really showing it how it works. And then he posted pictures later in my group that showed all the different, how much trays he actually went through, which is pretty insane. What was it, 45 minutes? I think you did. It had to have been a couple
yeah.
hundred. Like,
Well, no, it wasn't a couple hundred, but it was probably around I don't know, more than 70. And third, it was 35 minutes of washing, about 10 minutes of setup and takedown. So
yeah,
just because where I have it is over a sink, it's not just like something that's gonna be stationary. It's a shared sink in the
yeah.
unit that I'm in. For some reason, my whenever I'm trying to post a link, it is saying failed to post. So I don't know if other
Oh,
people are
okay.
seeing it, but I can always throw it in the Facebook groups too. Maybe I'll just try
Yeah.
the direct link to the one paper that talks about nutrition too, rather than Google. So there's the one. This will get into this article itself is organized by the phytochemical or compound that is beneficial, and then it tells you which microgreens are highest. So it doesn't. If you're like, tell me about cilantro, you kind of have to hunt through this article, but it does see or it does give you a good overview, compound by compound, whether it's absorbic acid or lutein or other compounds. So that's the one that I found a few weeks ago that I thought was real helpful in understanding. I had some customers who had talked to me and they're like, "Yeah, do you know about the health benefits of cilantro microgreens?" I'm like, "No, I grow it because chefs love it." Um, and
Exactly.
they're like, "No, it's like one of the healthiest microgreens possible for you out there." And it's like, "Oh, well, let me go try and figure out why or what that is." And so, as I am prone to do, I went down many dark rabbit holes trying to find stuff. And and this was one of the articles that luckily Ohio State University's Master Gardener group had in their share drive. You can find anything on the internet these days, even if it's behind
Oh
a
yeah.
paywall from a scholastic journal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's the one nice thing is a lot of colleges, that are out there now that students are doing, dissertations on actual, health benefits of microgreens. So they're doing scientific testing to actually back it all, and then they release those to the public, which is awesome. So they're actually scientifically based, not just a suggestion saying, "Hey, this microgreen's 100 times more nutrition," but I have, nothing to back it up with. So it's nice having that actual scientific data. And we've actually helped a couple different students, one from Morgan State University and another one from Penn State to actually do work on their actual dissertations about microgreens as well. So it's kind of neat. They're working on different studies to show like the best ways to store them and the best ways to keep them, so that way during travel they can get from point A to point B, even if it's long distance, and still be good for a couple weeks potentially. So it's kind of neat that there's people out there actually doing work on that kind of stuff. So definitely
Yeah,
helps.
and like I said in the Facebook group, I'll put it since it's not allowing me to link a Google sheet here per se. Um,
Yeah, and I
it,
might be able to
it
post that, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead and give that a whirl. It's just my kind of repository. There you go.
Yep.
Repository of all scholastic journals that I've found interesting personally for a variety of reasons, whether it's about fertigation, talking about liquid fertilizers are more effective with microgreens than solid fertilizers, whether it's about lighting. Obviously, I've done videos on lighting and stuff like that. There's one in there, I think, that talks about like natural lighting versus artificial lighting, which is a real interesting one when we start talking about both health benefits, distances and food deserts, things like that, because a lot of us can't
Yeah.
grow under natural lighting most of the year. But natural lighting microgreens are higher in some compounds, artificial lighting is higher in other compounds. It's real fascinating to be like, whoa, like depending on your lighting, you could have a different effect. And it's not that greenhouse grown ones are necessarily more beneficial or nutritious. They are in some regards, not so much in other regards.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'd be interested to dig through that information, so it'd be kind of neat to have. So yeah, definitely thank you for putting that all together and sharing that with us tonight. That's pretty awesome. So I guess the one big thing that comes in, and we've run into this too, is just having, the opportunity for nutrition in an urban environment, especially, because there's a lot of places that don't have access to farmland. There's not, they're big cities specifically, there's not a whole lot of places to actually grow unless you go way outside of the city. So that's the one benefit that microgreens brings to the table, is that it allows you to actually grow, in an urban environment, a true urban environment. I mean, we live in farm country for the most part where we are, but it's still technically considered urban farming because we're the way we're doing it, and we're kind of in a city. And we've actually won scholarships, based on bringing healthy food to an unhealthy environment. Overall, we got 15,000 fast food restaurants around us, so it's nice to have that benefit to be able to actually grow productive food that's nutritious, for the local community as well. So but yeah, it helps kind of like bridge some nutritional gaps, in urban communities. And the nice thing is it can also create a balanced diet for folks, because even if you're still eating a normal diet, is if you're at least adding, microgreens to your existing diet, you're at least, getting benefit from that. Because I talk to people all the time and they're like, wow, when I start eating microgreens, I'm not as hungry as I used to be. And it's like, yeah, because your body's actually getting what it wants. If you just eat a bunch of potato chips all day long, you're not getting hardly any nutrition. So your body just craves more food because it thinks it needs more. But if you eat something that's really good for you and full of nutritional value, then you don't have to eat as much, which is also a nice plus. So definitely works out good. So you have any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just real fascinating thing about like the food desert thing, and um, living in the northern part of the U.S. And there's people in Canada further north than me, right? But being on the Canadian border in Montana, like our growing season outdoors is 6 months out of the year, and so to get fresh
Yeah.
produce, like that's not a thing for 6 months out of the year unless things are coming from Southern California or even further south. I'm always amazed when I see like. Uh, because I have two kids, 4 and 7. I'm always buying strawberries, whether it's January or I don't buy them in June when mine are coming in my backyard, but like in the middle of the
Yeah.
winter and they're craving fruit, and I'm like, oh, that's coming from Chile. What? But that's like the reality, right? And so to be
Yep.
able to offer fresh produce and like that's a big thing I've had a really good reception in my community with, just because we're able to grow year round in when growing in an indoor environment. And like Andy said, it's like being able to occupy otherwise unoccupied spaces in our urban centers. I am literally in the middle of my downtown, in the heart of, I mean, it's not a large city. We're 70,000 people and within a few miles of our downtown, but I'm still able to occupy spaces that otherwise were going unoccupied. And I'm able, other than one restaurant, all of my clients, all my deliveries are within a mile and a half. That's a pretty incredible thing, to have people be able to come in. So I do like a CSA delivery drop off. And so they come to a centralized location. That's one of my restaurants that I deliver to. And it's a huge time saver for me. It's an efficiency boost. But it's also, yeah, like Andy said, being able to take, to dive in and to take unoccupied spaces in cities, and that would be, maybe it's more office spaces or maybe it's just going to be vacant. The one space I'm in, one of the spaces I'm, well, I guess, yeah, the one of the spaces I'm in now was vacant for almost 2 years prior to me occupying it. So, yeah, it's a nice way to, instead of adding infrastructure to places, like we can take infrastructure that's already there and modify it to meet our needs.
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to what we're getting ready to do. I mean, the space we're getting ready to move into, hopefully by the end of this month, is it was empty for at least probably 3 to 5 years. I honestly don't know how long, but when I went in to tour the place the first time, I mean, I went it's just a giant room and there's one office and one bathroom, and the office door was open and it was literally just cobwebs from ceiling to floor, left to right. It clearly had been empty for a while. So, it's nice for us to actually be able to take advantage of that and actually fill that space with something that's going to produce food for the local community. So it's definitely a nice plus for sure.
Well, and I
Um,
think this is something you're going to
and
get into, but I think it's really important for the freshness of a product, right? Like for
yeah,
something like microgreens that has 2 week, maybe 3 weeks, sometimes 1 week. Like I still have yet to get my amaranth to go much far past 1 week, and my basil's done within one. Like I don't know what people
yeah,
are
basil's
doing, like
tough.
what magic people are weaving, but that's I tell my folks like you gotta use this stuff quick, and I'll see you next week, right? Like keep that recurring order
Yeah.
going. But it's just one of those things where it's like you get stuff to people so fast. I was just talking with one of my produce clerks this last week. Did you cut what did he say? He was like, you just cut this stuff like yesterday or something. I'm like, no, I literally cut it an hour ago, packed it, and drove it over here. Like, I'm like, this stuff, if it's coming from California, you're already tacking on 3 to 5, 6 days possibly to get here
Yep.
out of your 2 week shelf life. It's not going to last in your customer's fridge, right? So that's the importance to me of like being here, being local, like to offer the freshest thing. I got to find it. There was one article. I nerd out on stuff like this, and I got to relocate it because it was before I started keeping my spreadsheet there. That talked about the degradation of the nutrient value in microgreens, and it was a sharp cliff. Like after 5 days, they had lost 50% of their nutritional value. Um, I, I got to dig that one back up. Don't quote me on that, but there was something that was just like real
Yeah.
downhill, real fast. It doesn't mean it doesn't feel good in your mouth and taste good and have like a lot of the stuff that people are desiring, but for those people who are purchasing for health reasons, like having it the same day or the next day is essential. So yeah,
Yeah.
like to
And even
be in
even the
our
places
cities.
that do ship, yeah, even the places that do ship out of, California and things like that, it's usually overnighted, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they'd harvested it the previous day. It could have been sitting on a shelf for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, before they even get it out the door. They're more worried about having large quantities in stock that when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need 20 pounds of cilantro," they can mail it out the door. Doesn't really matter how old it is necessarily. So it definitely makes it interesting. And that's really what we were about to get into, is just talking about, the low resource footprint. In Joe's case, he's going a mile and a half and delivering to a bunch of different restaurants, which is incredible. So, I mean, your actual impact on the environment, your carbon footprint is super low because you're driving very short, distances. But it's also, his food from harvest to delivery is only going, 1.5 miles. So the gas he's consuming, the mileage he's having to drive, the time he's spending, is amazing. So that's really, and even if it's, a couple hours drive total, driving all the way around to deliver a bunch of places, which is kind of what we do at the moment, it's still way better than having them be put on a plane and flown across the United States, or put on a giant, semi and driven across the United States. It definitely makes a big, big difference on the overall impact. And I think that's definitely important and something to highlight when you're talking about, microgreens to grocery stores and chefs and regular people as well, is just the environmental impact that you actually have by growing what you're growing is significant.
Two things. One, my favorite thing of the farmers market to be able to do is turn around and say, "You see that building right there, 2 blocks down the road? That's where I grow my microgreens." Like
Yeah,
literally, I am
that's
two
awesome.
blocks from my market stall, and with a clear line of vision. The other one is yeah, like what is the environmental impact of shipping stuff overnight? Like if it's not
Yeah.
coming on a truck, if it's getting overnighted, that means it's coming on a plane to get
Yep.
microgreens. That is just the definition of insanity and inefficiency and like
Yep.
burning up our planet like that. What, why, like that is,
Well,
yeah,
and the
I don't know,
irony
don't
is,
get me
I mean,
started, but
prior to even getting on the plane, it's got to be put in a truck, driven to the airport, loaded on a plane, flown on a plane, and then when the plane lands, it's got to put on another truck to drive to a distributor, most likely, and then that distributor is going to put it on one of their trucks and then take it to wherever it's going. So by the time it arrives, it's already on four different vehicles potentially, at least. Whereas we could just load it in the back of a car or in a van or whatever and drive it ourselves and be there in 20 minutes. So it's definitely a nice impact to have. But yeah, without a doubt, it's definitely that's something you need to talk about too. If you're not talking about that to your customers already, make sure they understand that this is how important local food is, especially local vegetables, local produce, local meats, things like that. You're getting fresh stuff that's insanely fresh. But it's also, you're supporting the local community. You're putting your dollars back into the local community and not having it go all over the place instead. So it goes right back into your
yep.
town, your county, your state, ultimately. So it just helps kind of support that entire process, because obviously, if you're buying something from out of state in any way, shape, or form, you're supporting that particular state, and they may use some of that money to help create grants, for farms that are in that state instead of your own state, so it's just some things to think about. I mean, they get funding from those kinds of things. So but yeah, and I think a big piece, is just The urban farming side of it is just how, it's space efficient. You're using very little water, to actually grow the plants, which is definitely important. So it's ideal for urban farming for sure. And then basically you're limited. A lot of cities are limited on gardening space, like we mentioned earlier. So it makes it really tough. If there's not farmland out there, you're either gonna have to drive a good long distance or you can grow them yourselves indoors. So it's very attractive to big city people that aren't used to getting fresh produce. They're going to the grocery store, they're getting something that came from God knows where, potentially from a local farm, but even that local farm may be 45 minutes to an hour away. So, um, ideally, just get that word out, that you're actually doing things locally. It definitely makes a big difference. And just the global impact that you're having as far as the environment goes. So, but yeah, so then you've got integration with urban life essentially. So, microgreens obviously enhance community gardens as a whole. There's educational programs that you can offer as well. And, the aesthetics that you get, you're fostering community engagement, you're, basically pushing sustainable practices. All those things are really important when you're trying to actually get in, and integrate with farm life that's in your area. And it's important to get out there and talk about it. Have you done any public speaking about your greens at all, Joe?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I've talked with elementary schools. I've talked with our county library's youth leadership club. I've talked.
Nice.
Let me see. I mean, I'd say every day I'm at the farmers market, I'm doing outreach for microgreens and just farming and local agriculture in general. But I mean, those are the big ones that just leap to mind. I'm also here in next month. I'm going to do additional stuff beyond microgreens, but I'm going to be doing a workshop with one of our local nurseries where microgreens are going to be a part of it, but it's to help me launch my new product line with worm castings, which all my microgreens go to make worm castings. So I like to say I have the
Yeah.
best, most nutrient dense fed worms on the planet, because I don't know who else is feeding like straight nothing but microgreens to their worms. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Really not too many
I
people.
definitely do a ton of outreach whenever I can with just different groups. Like there's no limit. Talk with schools, talk with gardening clubs, talk with. I've done a ton of tabling at my local one of my grocery stores that I'm in, both giving samples to people and then also just informing them and yeah, just talking about all of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great way to get stuff out there. And if you're not already in, some of the Facebook groups that we have out there, it's definitely important to get in there. I mean, people like Joe are very active in a lot of the groups that both I run and Robert Meredith, who used to be on here, he runs, and there's several out there that are really good. I would say the microgreens entrepreneurs and Robert's group are probably the two best as far as getting really good quality answers from actual experts who are literally doing this for a living, potentially even full time in most cases. So I'll post some of the links to the groups in the chat. So the first one I'm going to post is just the Microgreens Entrepreneurs Group. That's really driven around being a microgreens business owner. That's really the goal behind it. It's not necessarily a place to learn how to grow different things or ask questions about, is this mold or is this root hairs? That group is really going to be more for our microgreens for beginners group that we have, and that's another great spot. We've got a lot of experts in that group as well that reply very heavily. Joe's definitely very involved. There's another guy named Michael Bergonzi that's very involved. Myself and Mike Hicks are obviously very involved, so we're all commenting and liking and all that kind of stuff all the time. And the idea is just to kind of really help new people get started, and then when they realize, okay, now I'm past that point, I don't have to ask all these basic questions anymore, then you can jump into the entrepreneurs group, or you can jump in there and just learn in the meantime. But that's really why we want to have those two options out there, just to be safe. And if you haven't gotten into our farm flow structure yet, if you don't know what farm flow is, we basically designed this software in-house. We started with it about 4 years ago, and it's just been tailored over the years to work for us. And then back in November, I guess it was a little bit earlier than that, but November was the official launch where we actually pushed it out for users to be able to use. So it allows you to manage every aspect of what you would need to do down to recurring orders, subscriptions. You can basically set up, it tells you what you need to plant, what you need to soak, what you need to move to the light, what you need to black out, what you need to harvest, who you need to harvest for. Allows you to organize your deliveries. So when delivery day arrives, you can actually easily, map it right to Google Maps, send it right to your phone. That's just a small portion of what it can do. It's amazing. We have a 30-day trial that we're always offering. So I'll post a link to that in there as well into the chat. So feel free to
Oh,
get set up with that. And later tonight, you may have a chance of winning 3 months or 6 months for free of FarmFlow. But regardless, we always do a 30-day trial, and we don't take credit card or anything up front, so it's risk free from the very beginning.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is like of all the web based things I've ever been involved in, it probably has the most responsive web developer I've ever had. If you're like, Andy, what the heck did I do? Like my stuff is jacked up. Why are my harvest days and my sowing days not lining up where I need them to?
Yep.
Or if you have something that's a legit bug, like you're like, I did this thing and now it's not showing me I have any trays to harvest, but I got four sitting on the shelf. What happened? Oh, did you fill in your seed lot, or whatever it may be. So,
Yep. Yeah.
like Andy's super responsive. Just hit him up on Facebook. I'm going to just make sure everyone knows to get you to blow up your inbox, Andy, on that one. But I know I've had
It's
some
okay.
difficulty and Andy's got me straightened out. And now, I mean, it's definitely when I started using FarmFlow, like it helped me. It was just a brain dump. Before that, I had everything in my brain. Mike Hicks has talked about, going from spreadsheets to whiteboards to to seed leaf, then to FarmFlow. Like I just went straight to FarmFlow from my brain. And being a
Yeah.
one person operation, that was okay, but I was getting to the point where it was getting really hard to juggle all that. And then I'm setting up myself with trying to develop my policies, my SOPs, things like that, to be able to bring someone on. And like I was like, I need to not have this in my brain. I need to have it where someone else can follow along in a really
Yep.
simple format. And so that really helped me get to where I can. And then it was just like amazing, like to have a pick list, on your harvest days, to just be like, oh, I need this many trays. Let me take a whole rolling rack down the aisle and just start pulling stuff rather than making 10 trips. Oh, I need one more. Oh, I need one more. Oh, I need one more.
Yep.
Just to just have that all, like it started saving me hours of time, like right off the bat. So, I mean, for the price, like you're not going to find another thing that's going to give you that much of a return on investment.
Yeah. I
Andy did
appreciate
not
that very
ask
much.
me to be a living ad on that one, but I will today.
No, I appreciate that very much. I mean, it's a lot of work. We still have a long ways to go. It does a lot already, but there's definitely some improvements I want to make over time, and I'm working on it all the time. I added a couple little minor things this afternoon. We're getting ready to do a server upgrade tonight on the database, so that'll happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. I posted in the FarmFlow Facebook group, so if you're not in there already as well, I'll post that. So if you're a user in the system or you're interested or just want to ask questions, feel free to join that group that I just posted in the chat. That's where I post updates, where I post, things that may be happening, things of that nature. So it's a
I,
great tool. We've been using it the entire time since we started. It looked way worse when I had it by myself because it didn't have to look nice. So I had to really give it a facial upgrade completely to, get it to look good for you guys. So a lot of extra work, but I wanted to make sure it was affordable for everybody. That's why we kept the price at what we did. I've had a lot of people reach out and they're like, you could charge way more for this, but it's not that big of a deal to me. I would rather have people be able to use it successfully and have the industry as a whole be better as a result, and everybody's doing things efficiently. That was really the idea behind it. So, all right, so we punched that down the list. So let's talk about kind of economic, opportunities with microgreens. So it is a profitable venture, and I want people to understand that. I mean, both Joe and I are literally doing this full time. This is our full time job, and that's all we're doing. So I need you to understand that it's possible to get to that point. It may seem like it's a giant uphill battle, from the beginning to actually get from just starting off, having your first tray, your first three trays, whatever. But if you do it intelligently and you focus on, good marketing, telling a good story, we've talked about this in past podcasts, reaching out to local people, getting into local groups on Facebook. It's a great way to kind of get your name out there and allow you to kind of grow that market demand, in your area. So that's definitely a big piece. And then obviously you can, work your way into grocery stores and restaurants and food and produce distributors in the long run. And obviously direct to customers, a great place to start. Farmers markets, things like that. Great place to kind of tee off your whole entire thing. So we started at our house, as everybody knows, doing farmer market right out front of our house. It was in the depths of COVID. So we had to encourage people to come out. We spent money on Facebook to, promote the fact that we were going to be doing it. And here we are, just under 4 years later at 32 grow racks and getting ready to move into a 4,000 square foot space. So if you do it right and you provide good customer service and good product, it can go quick. So give us a little bit about your success story there, Joe. What got you to be full time?
hustle your ass off, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really what it's
Yep.
all about. My first 2 years. Yeah, no, the dog's about to go crazy with his dog toy in here. My wife's coming down the stairs staring at me.
It's quite all right, man.
Sorry. Yeah, life is catching up to me here. So, like, I had it's not easy when you're trying to do this part time, right, on top of a full time job. I
Yeah.
was easily 60 hours a week between my full time job. I'd be going from 7 a.m. with my kids until 11 p.m. in the microgreen room. I'd go into my microgreens room as soon as my kids were down to bed at 8 p.m. And do that. And then I would be delivering on my lunch hours during the week. So to restaurants. Like it's not easy trying to juggle all that. And that's when I kind of made the decision that I needed to do this change for my family and for myself to kind of just jump into it. I will say my journey has been an unusual one in that my first sales were to a grocery store. In that,
Oh,
so
wow.
how that happened was being in Montana, my first two farmers markets were canceled. And so I had a full rack of microgreens sitting there with nothing to do with them. And uh, and I had everything in germination for the next week, right? Like I had to move them, so I just took in samples to my two local mom and pop grocery stores and said, "Hey, would this be something you're interested in carrying them?" One of them was already carrying microgreens from a distributor, and they said, "Yeah, we'll gladly carry yours." As long as you're growing organically. I'm like, good thing. That's what I knew I was going to be going towards the organic route anyway. And so I had organic
Yeah.
practices. You can sell under $5,000 if you're following the National Organic Program as organic and get into organic stores, only stores like that. And so I was able to start with them. And then as soon as they started rocking and rolling, like I still had the farmers market to do, and within a month I had a second rack added because I had to have a second rack for the farmers market because I already had a rack sold to the two grocery stores weekly. So that's just kind of where that took off, and then from there it was just working nonstop. Saturdays farmers market, late at night, early in the morning, whenever I could. It's a lot of hustle.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And
There's
that's a
no
joke.
sugarcoating that.
No, that's a joke I always tell people. I say, I left my 40-hour a week job so I could work an 80-hour a week business. I mean, it's more or less you're 7 days a week. There's no days off. And it's always funny because and even if you're not physically at the farm, you're still always, thinking about it. It's always in your mind, like, oh, what can I do? I need to get back to this customer. I need to do that. I need to remember to post this thing, or whatever. And it's like, it's tough, so it can definitely be all consuming if you allow it to be. And especially if you're married, you need to make time for your kids. You need to make time for your wife, without a doubt. And that's one thing, that my wife and I are really good at is we purposely set aside time, to make sure, because I mean, it can easily take over your life for sure if you allow it to. So we always make sure we make that quality time. But yeah, it definitely can be crazy, but that's always the joke is that, we left a 40-hour week job to, work an 80-hour week business, but all part of the fun. But I would much rather do that than work for somebody else, is what it boils down to. You have the freedom, if you need a day off, you can go do whatever you have to do. You don't have to worry about missing your kids' events, all that kind of stuff. It definitely opens up just a additional world that you may not have been familiar with. So it's definitely a nice plus. But so yeah,
Yeah,
and if you haven't already, oh
the,
good.
I was gonna say the flexibility is what really has me
Yeah.
there. Like we have a special needs child and lost our after school care and had multiple out of school suspensions last fall. And to be able to just like flex and be like, you know what, I can go in after 8 p.m. to go water, to go plant, after the kids in bed.
Yeah.
Like I can go back to that. Right now, I'm no longer doing that. If it doesn't fit within my 8:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is outside of it was school hours. Like I'm not at the farm, I'm not doing anything. So that's really what the benefit for me and my family has been is just like to free up my time that I did not have in my state job.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to mention too, to those who are on the chat, if you show up as Facebook user, we just had a post that shows up as that. If you want to get on the contest that we're going to be doing later on, you got to go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Facebook, unfortunately, has to allow a connection to StreamYard. So, unfortunately, you're just going to show up as Facebook user. It won't allow you to actually enter in for the contest that we give away at the end of the day. So, or the end of the podcast, anyway. So, if you haven't already, put in hashtag Thumbcast. That will actually get you into the giveaway that we're going to do later on. That's the only way you can enter is if you actually put in hashtag Thumbcast. So make sure you do that. And if you have any questions about what we're talking about, post those into the comments as well. We're going to go through some of those later on, do a live Q&A at the end of the podcast as well. And also, I wanted to bring up the Harvest members. We want to thank them. This is all through Itty Bitty Micro Farms YouTube page, obviously. So they obviously appreciate you guys, being part of this, and it helps support the channel, helps, pay for things like their StreamYard, account and things of that nature. So definitely appreciate you guys that have been on there for a while. Definitely good stuff. And also wanted to really quickly just play a little ad about my coaching. Elevate your microgreens operation with personalized one-on-one business coaching. Our recorded sessions meet you right where you are as we dive deep into sales, marketing, and everything in between, saving you months, if not years, of time. We can teach you how to sell to chefs, grocery stores, farmers market attendees, weekly subscribers, and distributors. We can also grow with you and help you scale up, expand into commercial space, and hire quality employees. Invest in your future and build a thriving microgreens business, not just a green thumb. Book a time with me today and let's unlock the full potential of your microgreens business. Nice. That's a handsome guy. Anybody notice that sweet Superman shirt that he had on too? So if you're interested in any business coaching, we've helped people all over the world. Just put a link in the comments down there. So feel free to book a time with me. I mean, we can get a lot done in 30 minutes. You'd be very surprised. So don't feel like you have to get a long, 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, whatever session. We can get a lot done in 30 minutes. So yeah. All right, cool. So let's move on. So our next segment, we're going to be talking about food deserts, which we talked about before a little bit. We can get into a little heavier detail on them now, but really the idea is, if you don't know what a food desert is, it's more or less an area that just doesn't have access to good nutritional value, is really what it boils down to. So we're basically trying to help fill those voids by being microgreen growers to actually be able to provide nutritional valued food into an area that typically doesn't have it, unfortunately. So it's definitely a nice way to kind of bridge that fresh food gap. And you can also oftentimes work with different local organizations as well to help kind of, get the word out. You can either work with businesses and kind of go in and actually have them do like a weight loss challenge or a nutritional, changing challenge or something like that, and help work with them. You can also work with nonprofits, which are a great option as well. So if you have like extra samples or an extra tray or two at the end of the week, you can pack those up, donate them to a local food bank of some kind, and you can write that off at the end of the year, which is a beautiful thing. So we do that every year. We've worked with one particular place here in Elkton over the last, I think, 2 years. Ever since we opened up the shop in Elkton, we've been donating everything we had left over to them, which has worked out great. The first year we donated about $10,000 worth of microgreens, which was awesome. And I will say, like, most of the people that attended were homeless, and they greatly prefer fresh produce. Doesn't matter if it's lettuce, doesn't matter if it's microgreens. It's just something they can't really get typically, because if somebody gives them money to go buy food, they don't have the option in most cases to get a fresh salad, or something like that. They're usually going to end up with fast food, unfortunately. So they definitely really enjoy, being able to eat fresh produce. Do you guys do anything, Joe, with any local food places to be able to give out samples and stuff to people?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do. A couple things. One is with our local food bank. If I have extras, I definitely take them down there. The food bank actually comes to the farmers market, and if there's anything extra at the end of the farmers market, since I do live cutting, I just pack it all up right then and there, and give it to them, and they write me a donation receipt. Again, keep it for the end of the year for tax purposes.
Yeah.
And then also there's I'm registered with our state SNAP program, and WIC program. So
Yeah.
women and infants, and then the supplemental nutrition assistance program. And then there's also a seniors food benefit program here in Montana. And I'm registered with all them. And so any of those people, they usually have vouchers or things like that. And they can come up and get product. And oftentimes I'm like, keep your voucher, take the micros, and go have a happy life. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt
Yeah.
me to lose a one pack to someone who's hurting a lot more than I am. Then the other thing I do too, because I am for people who are aware of the program, I'm an AmeriCorps alum. And I often, if AmeriCorps alumni are walking through the farmers market, I'll just throw them a pack of microgreens, be like, hey, enjoy, because I know they're on really tight stipends too. So yeah, like anytime I have a chance, like just spread the wealth, right? Spread the
Yep.
nutrition.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've definitely given some stuff away, and I think probably the most unique one we ever gave away. We were at this very, very small market. It was almost a borderline waste of time for us. And a guy rides up on a bike, just a regular bicycle, and he's got a bunch of stuff strapped to it. And he's like, "Yeah, I just really need some food." And he was going to pay me, no problem. But when he told me what he was doing, he was actually riding across the country, literally, and to go all the way up to I think Washington State is where he was going to stop, and I don't remember what he was raising money for. And I wish I remembered off the top of my head, but it was some really awesome foundation, basically. And, so he's like, yeah, I need, just trying to get some healthy stuff and stop in and, talk to local people. And I was like, dude, here, take whatever you want. I was handing him loads of stuff to take with him. So that way he had really good nutrition to actually be biking across the US. So it was really a neat experience with that kind of things. I thought that's probably the most unique person we've given stuff away to at this point that I can think of.
I, I didn't give it away, but I sold it to some van life people, camper van people who just like live
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
a van, and it's actually
Nice.
funny because they're like one of my top Instagram followers now, and they did a thing where they took one of my grow kits and like had the microgreens on their dashboard underneath the Grand Teton, or things like that, and they're often
Nice.
like liking my stuff on Instagram and whatnot. And so it's it's real funny, like to just make those connections wherever you can. Farmers markets are amazing for that reason alone.
Yeah.
It's just like awareness and making connections, and you don't know where your stuff is going to end up.
Yeah, and what was neat is they, after we gave him the samples for free, they basically had just started filming a video that they were gonna, basically promote throughout the whole country as they were going across the nation. So they ended up actually, as a result, filming, our market, and we got to talk about our microgreens and all that kind of stuff, which was kind of neat. So we actually got free marketing out of it to a certain extent, not really necessarily local marketing, but it's still better than nothing. And anything, it got the word out about microgreens being a thing. So it definitely worked out good. But yeah, it's good stuff. And I definitely want to thank Detroit Mike, who yet again has gifted a itty bitty micro membership to somebody. So looks like Marla Largent ended up actually winning. So Marla, welcome. You're now considered part of our little group here. Thank you to Detroit Mike. So Detroit Mike's always awesome about doing that. We appreciate that very much, man. Very generous guy. And it was neat to see him in the Gap program as well, to finally actually see him in person. And seems like a cool guy. So I mean, so far all the experiences I've had with him, he's been awesome. All right, so let's get into kind of advocacy and community development. So we talked about speaking to places that like schools and libraries and colleges and high schools, and we have a tech school that we've spoken at a couple times as well. And it's really important because it's easy to educate a whole room of people all in one shot. And oftentimes, they're already interested in farming to a certain extent, or they probably wouldn't be there. We have a local farm museum that we spoke at, I don't know how many times at this point, and it's always a great group. They're always really interested. It's a great way to hand out samples, hand out literature, potentially even get customers out of it. Subscribers, things of that nature is awesome too. So it's definitely something you want to pursue if you're not pursuing that already. And oftentimes you can get a hold of your local department of agriculture, the person who's running that segment of it, as far as like getting, the names out for farmers. They're a great resource for that, as far as giving you grant opportunities and also giving you opportunities to kind of self promote your local business. Do you guys have somebody that you work with, Joe, that's out there that kind of does that from the Department of Ag side of things?
Oh yeah, for sure. So in Montana, we have the food and agricultural development centers. And so there's someone that like literally like tells me when there's grant opportunities specifically open for us. There should be one launching here in the next few weeks in USDA, the value added produce program. But yeah,
Yeah.
like definitely like they're a huge benefit. And as you were saying, like community of development too, and advocacy, like a big thing that we do is every year our local neighborhood center has a big fundraiser, and we're a big sponsor of that fundraiser, both in cash donations. We do a silent auction gift, which this year I did one of my CSA memberships, and then I went around to all of my restaurants and said, hey, this thing's $120 value. Can I get 5 of my restaurants to pitch in a $25 gift card? And they were all like, done, like easy.
Nice.
And so boosted that up to like a $200 value package. And then like the fun thing too is then I donate live trays and flowers and stuff like that to actually be used in the cooking competition. And so they're talking about that when it's plated and going up in front of people. And so there's a lot of awareness in that room of people. And you know what, I'm there as well, and I'm talking to people. I have people coming up. I'm wearing my NRS Microgreens T-shirt, and they're coming up and chatting with me about what it is I do and stuff. So, you know, and then as a kickback to me, I got 2 new subscribers to my CSA out of it because they had bid on my
Nice.
package for the CSA and they did not win. And then they contacted me because I put my pile of business cards right next to the thing. And then like the next day they were reaching out. So it's definitely like find those ways to really elevate your business and engage with your community. I mean, because that's the benefit. Like Andy was saying, like we are local. These dollars are staying in your community, and that shows them not only are they staying in the community, but they are staying into high needs areas of your community. You know, yes, we're paying taxes. Yes, we're making sponsorships and donations. Yes, we're, you know, out there handing out free packages to people who can't otherwise afford it. Like we're here to support our community because that's really what it's about.
Yep, 100%. And I cannot even tell you how many opportunities and how many doors have opened as a result of working with my Department of Ag people in my county specifically. They have gotten us into events that has led to huge customers. I mean, not just small, but like distributors and talking directly to restaurants. We've got an event coming up next month where we're literally going to be at basically a tasting event, and it's I don't even know how many chefs there, like 20 or 30 chefs, and we've offered, same thing like Joe did, to basically say, hey, we'll give you whatever microgreens you want for free. Use them on all your plating, and then what happens? I've got direct contact with all of those chefs. Every single one of them are going to see our greens, experience our greens, see how nice they look on their plates. And then what's going to happen from there? The hope would be, that we can follow up with them or they'll follow up with us and we can land them as clients. So, there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there. The event that we have now attended 2 years in a row, we just attended a couple weekends ago. It's a humongous event. I mean, I literally came home with a giant stack of business cards still sitting here. These are all restaurants, distributors, whatever. So, huge amount of leads that just came out of that event. And I would have never known about it if I didn't talk to my local Department of Ag, person that's out there to help, promote farms. So find out who that is in your area, get them on the phone, treat them to lunch, whatever you have to do, and we did that in the county that we're located in now, our farm is, and the person that we've always worked with here in this county, she doesn't even work in that Department of Ag anymore, but she still made contact with the county that we're going to be moving our farm to make sure that that person knew who we were, and we've already started a conversation, and they've already, even though we're not even there yet, have already opened doors for us to be able to talk to different places and different ideas. So it's definitely worth reaching out. I would highly encourage you to do it, and it's just a great way to kind of help that reach into your community even further. But yeah, so then you definitely want to encourage advocacy. That's a hard word to say. Just trying to basically generate support for urban agriculture in your area. It's definitely a big piece, and you can do that through your community, through education, through talking to people, and just it basically creates a conducive environment for microgreen farming to grow in your area, which is important. And then you're also basically promoting urban food security, because obviously everything being super local, hopefully being grown correctly, you're basically just promoting that locality and that really quick access to really healthy food. Um, so, and you can take action either by starting your own grow operation, and kind of building microgreens in your area. Or if you know a local microgreen provider, then, feel free to purchase from them if you have to, or help kind of promote them, share their information, share their posts, whatever you have to do to kind of help build up that environment, that community. It's definitely important. So, and again, if you haven't done, hashtag Thumbcast in the comments, make sure you do that. That's going to be a giveaway towards the end. I have no clue how many people are watching because I have no idea where to find that. This is my first time running the thing by myself. So I literally had to learn all this 10 minutes before we came on. So we do have 12 entries at the moment. So if you're on here and you haven't done it yet, hashtag Thumbcast in the comments. I'll highlight Legendary Greens. He just put his in not too long ago. So that's all you got to do is just put a comment just like that. Hashtag Thumbcast, and that'll get you into the contest. So, any last minute comments there, Joe, before we get into the Q&A?
Can I put my Thumbcast in? Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, and if you haven't already, like I said, go check out Joe's YouTube page. He's got, especially if you grow in cocoa coir, he's got a lot of great videos on how to work with coir directly as far as what you're growing. And I mean, by far, at least from our standpoint, because we don't use cocoa coir anymore, but his tray washing machine 100% got my mind moving because I thought, how can I make this into something that's two-sided and all this? Definitely got my brain moving for sure. So it's people like Joe that actually take advantage of that, opportunity and be the first one out there. I mean, not technically the first. He took some inspiration from other guys, but to really put himself out there heavily, with his version and his iteration. And I'm sure he'll make improvements to it over time, as we all will. But it's kind of like you're watching product development live, essentially. Somebody will take Joe's work and add something extra to it, and then Joe will be, oh, that's cool, maybe work it into his own piece. So it's neat to have something like that out there. So Joe, I really do appreciate that, and I can assure you in the next 6 months I'll be putting something together because we already need it. The amount of trays that we're going through. So definitely thank Joe in the comments. Follow him on Facebook. Subscribe to his channel on YouTube, things like that, and definitely keep an eye on what he's doing. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I just dropped the link to the playlist for the tray washer there in the comments. So
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so make sure you subscribe to his channel. He's always posting good content about that kind of stuff, and he really gets heavy into the details, which I really like. Because if you're interested in that level of detail, then he definitely hits that on the head every single time.
I
All right,
recently, when I fired up my Patreon page, and my dog's gonna go crazy here. I'm sorry. Um,
that's
I,
okay.
I called it like 501. I feel like there's a lot of 101 resources out there, even like 201, and if stuff gets a little wiggy, then you're like reaching out to Andy and Mike, and it's like I really want to cover like how do you really like take this thing and run with it? How do you really build this as
Yeah,
a business? How do you think about leaning up your farm? If you haven't read the Lean Farmer or listened to it, give that a good listen to, because it will just like make you stop in your tracks and be like, I am walking in through my 300 square foot room way too much. It's not a huge room, but I'm
yeah,
already walking too much, and that's really where I want to be at, is like, how can we improve those efficiencies? I got a ton of videos. I just need that fire under my butt and a little bit of time, and maybe a tray washer is going to help me buy some time where I can get some more of that stuff, like the fertilizer injector up there, and other content that I have. So I intend to be more active, but we'll just see how life goes.
and I'd be willing to bet more subscribers would lead to more activity. So if you're not already, get out there and subscribe to Joe's channel. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put up this little outro video here. So if you're on live, then stick around for the Q&A. We're going to do that right after this. And if not, we'll see you in the next one. All right, guys. So we're going to get into the Q&A. So if you haven't posted your questions already into the comments below, make sure you do that. And that way Joe and I can answer the questions. I know it's going to take a little bit of extra time for me to kind of dig through all the comments. So we'll get into the live Q&A. I don't know how to start the 30-minute timer, which they usually do. I doubt that's going to come up immediately after this, so we'll just kind of wing it as we
And
go through the process. So,
I'm gonna have to bounce before that because this is like right smack dab in the middle of my dinner prep time. So
no,
sorry
dude, you're
about that.
totally fine. Yep. So, Joe, I really do appreciate you coming on, man, and helping me out because it would have been interesting by myself. So, definitely, Joe adds a lot of value. Joe's in the groups all the time, so make sure you follow him again on YouTube, follow him on Facebook, and thank him every opportunity you get because he's very good at what he does. So, Joe, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, I'll hang out for a little bit, but I got maybe 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So let's get through some of these questions here. I apologize because obviously I'm doing just Mike and I's job tonight. So it's a little bit interesting trying to locate everything. All right. So we got Marcus. Good day. Started my first micros some days ago and have been eating incredibly good. That's awesome. Let's see. I apologize for having to dig through all these guys. There's a lot of comments. I appreciate you guys being active in the chat. Looks like Dan's Sonny's are starting to show some life. That's definitely good. And let's see. Can't wait to watch Joe's video on the DIY washer. Josh, it's awesome. There's 3 videos. They're very informative. I've already watched all 3 as well. Kathy, I appreciate the prayers from my mom. She's got a long ways to go, so I appreciate that very much. Josh as well, sending prayers from New Jersey. Yep, and Marcus, I hope it stays that way as well, my friend. Kathy, I'm grateful to our community. I'm an Oregon recipient and found microgreens during my recovery a year and a half ago. Awesome. Yeah, and I've coached Kathy numerous times. We know each other pretty well at this point. I think we've had 4 or 5 coaching sessions. She's down in Southern Maryland, so it's awesome to have another Maryland person here. And then my chef, Andrew from Homegrown Cafe in Newark, Delaware. If you're ever there, stop by and see him. Awesome chef. They work with a lot of local farms. They also do a lot of really good vegan and vegetarian recipes as well, which a lot of restaurants around here actually do that, unfortunately. So he's kind of leading the whole thing with that. And then Dan, again, I use fresh seaweed from the ocean. It works great. And so, Facebook user, this is kind of what I was trying to show off here earlier. So, if you haven't done this already, this is what your comment actually shows up as. So, make sure you go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Because if you entered in a hashtag thumbcast, you're not going to be entered in the actual giveaway. I can tell you that. It's just a stupid thing that Facebook unfortunately has to make you do. Detroit Mike, I appreciate the compliment. And let's see. Oh, we got Josh on here too. What's up, Josh? Josh is actually out to sea right now. So he's a busy man at the moment. And Dan, I appreciate the compliment about farm flow. Again, if you haven't gotten in there yet, freshsourcefarms.com/farm flow. I posted it in the comments before. You can easily get on there, start your 30-day trial as well. Let's see. Can it adapt if you don't do blackout? I'm assuming you're talking about farm flow. And yes. So when you set up a product, you can basically put in 0 days for blackout and it'll skip that whole process. And that way you'll go right to the light. That's by far the easiest way to do it. And then farm flow more speed. Yep. Tonight, 3 a.m. We're going to be getting our server upgrade for the database side of things. The website is already running on its own private server. The database is going to be running on a separate private server, so they actually don't even run on the same machine. So it adds even more efficiency. But the nice thing is, once that migration is done tonight, I can add memory and CPU power to it really easily without having to take it down at all. Which is nice. So we'll be down briefly tonight, very short time, around 3 o'clock in the morning, literally is when they're making the update. Catherine or Kathy, I appreciate it. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So how long did it take to be able to be profitable? We're hoping to make a profit in 2 to 3 years. We're in a rural area with a town of less than 3,000 people. So growing out of your house is definitely the much easier way to get profitable because your expenses are almost nothing. Obviously, the likelihood you have no employees, you're not paying anybody by the hour. Your rent is basically included as part of your existing rent wherever you live, or a mortgage that you may have. So it's definitely the cheaper option. If you can continue to grow in your house, ideally, it's by far the best way to go. And really, you shouldn't have to spend more than $500 to $1,000 out of pocket to get started. And then basically the goal from there would be, as you're earning money off of your sales, then you actually invest that money back into the business. Most businesses on average, you're going to be probably looking at 2 to 3 years. But that's also assuming you have commercial space right off the bat, which is what most businesses have to deal with right off the bat. So you can be profitable pretty quickly, depending how aggressive you are with your sales and your marketing. Anywhere from 3 to 6 months, even potentially, you could actually be making your profit. Now, this isn't you're going to be making $100,000 a year in net profit, in 3 to 6 months. It's very, very unlikely. But you can at least be pulling in maybe a couple $100s a week right off the bat, within a couple months, 2, 3, 4 months. It's not unattainable. So what about you, Joe? When did you finally start realizing, I can really do something with this?
I mean, I think I'm a little bit in your same boat right now, Andy, where I've just been reinvesting, building up
Yeah.
more racks, getting more supplies, stuff like that. So, I'm only going into my first second year. So I've been in business 2 years now. I had to think about that.
Yeah.
So I'm still in that little bit of a honeymoon phase, waiting to really break this whole thing open. But it also depends on your pricing, right? Like, build your labor into
Yeah.
your margins, separate from your margins. Don't just try and like if you want to pay yourself $20 an hour, like build that $20 an hour into your sale cost, right? So
Yep.
it's not necessarily all about making a profit. You shouldn't be paying yourself out of your profit. That should be the money that's being retained for the business to expand the business.
Yeah. Yeah, in an ideal world, you're paying yourself, hourly or a salary of some kind, and then that way you're capped, to where then you have money that's actually staying in the business that you can continue to reinvest. And it may not sound like it's that important, but when you get started, you're buying racks, you're buying trays, you're buying lights, you're, investing in space potentially, investing in employees potentially. So, there's a lot of people that are going to look at pricing calculators and say, "Oh, I don't need to charge that much." But you're not thinking about how much you're paying yourself. The long term when you're going to have a commercial space, how much is that going to cost you? The long term when you have employees, how much is that going to cost you? How much is a new vehicle to, or a used vehicle to drive your microgreens around? Things like that you have to consider. So, if you're starting out and you're just you and a couple racks and you're thinking, man, I'm making 90%, gross profit on everything I'm selling. Good. Stay there. You don't cut your price back because it's a whole lot harder to raise your price later than it is to bring your to bring it down basically. So keep the price where it is, because eventually you may be making great money right now, but eventually some of that's going to get chewed up by some of the expenses that you aren't thinking about at the moment. So keep your
Yeah.
profit margin really high right off the bat, especially, and then that way you can maintain that and kind of slowly fill in that 90% with maybe getting down to 60 or 70% gross profit over time. So yeah, think long term when you're setting your pricing for sure. And if
And
you're
there's a
not
whole
in
I
yeah,
was
go
just
ahead.
saying, there's a whole ton that people don't really even start thinking about. It's like, yeah, your insurance, your
Yeah.
farmer's market display, your transport, things like that. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, and Mike and Jess Hicks have a really awesome pricing calculator that you can get for free if you join their school group. I don't know if I have the URL handy. I'll try and pull it up, but he posts about it all the time in the microgreens groups and stuff like that on most of his YouTube pages as well. So definitely check that out. All you have to do is post a couple times, get a couple comments and a couple likes, and you basically get that for free. It works out really good. So awesome. All right, let's move on to the next question here. So, Facebook user, we don't know who you are. That's me. I'm an IPKEA at a public elementary school. Work with special needs children until 2:30. Then I do my micros. I want to do micros full time, but I only have two fine dining restaurants so far. So far, that's the important thing. So yeah, and that definitely it's tough. I mean, I was working a full time regular job, 45-minute drive back and forth. When we first got really heavy into it, and eventually got to the point where I was like, all right, this is too much. I need to do one or the other, and the microgreen option was it. So worked out good. Let's see. Today I went and gave samples of four fine dining restaurants. Nice. I'm assuming that's probably the same person. So that's good. Yeah, you're giving out samples as much as you can. I mean, I tell people all the time in coaching sessions you should be reaching out to at least three restaurants or three new businesses every day in some fashion. And that's not that hard to do. Just generate a huge list if you have to. Just search for restaurants near me, grocery stores near me, and then make a list basically and reach out to two or three a day. That's plenty. If you reach out to 100 all at once and then all of a sudden you have 80 of them come back and say, yep, I'm ready to go, where does that put you? You got all of a sudden buy a whole lot of equipment that you may not have the money for yet in your business. So allow it to grow slowly, and especially at a pace that you can handle. That's going to be super important. All right, let's see here. Got a lot of hashtag thumbcasts in, which is good. All right, let's see. Life is like a sandwich. It's all about the brand, no matter how you flip it. Very true. Yeah, Matt definitely does a lot of work with schools as well, which is really cool. So let's see. Oh, there's Mike. Just wanted to jump on here real fast and thank Andy for taking the show lead tonight, and special guest Joe. Mike didn't even know Joe was going to be on here. Joe didn't even know Joe was going to be on here until about 6:30. So it worked out great. I was glad he was able to come on and do it. So glad to have you here, Mike. Hopefully you guys are getting all your stuff done tonight. Josh, you guys are doing great. I appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Marcus, can the farm flow software adapt if I don't do blackout? Sorry, I did answer that one already. Great job, Andy. Have a great one, Joe. Thank you, Mike. All right. I can't get into one farmer's market no matter how hard I try. Is it because they already have another microgreens grower? Sometimes that's the case. There's certain farmers markets that don't care if there's competition there, but we've run into some where they don't want other microgreen growers in there if they already have one. So it may just be something where you kind of get on the market manager's list. And then basically, if that other grower drops out for any reason, then they can go from there. Or if you can show them that you have other things to offer, like Joe grows mushrooms, he does flowers, all kinds of other things, he could potentially bring those instead of microgreens and kind of fill that void. So just some things to think about. It's
I
one downside with
honestly,
farmers markets.
Honestly, though, like if a markets manager's like, oh, we only have allow one microgreens grower, like push back, be like, how many people do you have selling carrots, zucchini,
Yeah.
lettuce? Do you only
Yep.
allow one farmer in your entire farmers market? It's pretty ridiculous. Like there's room for
Yeah.
all of us. Like the more that we build, like there some weeks of microgreens, and the way we grow our crops, you can't just be on the sidelines waiting to jump in if they decide to not show for 1 week because you won't have any product. Like you got to be
Yeah.
there consistently. And guess what? If they don't show for 1 week, then the other grower is going to have a great week, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You'll have a great week if they don't show 1 week. So it's just like I use logic like with them because there's no reason that there should be limited to only one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely aggravating, but it's some of the market managers, they just don't even want to take the chance on it. And it's unfortunate because you could easily be set up right next to another microgreen grower and you guys could equally do amazing, when it boils down to it. And I've talked about this before on the show where, ultimately you should not be afraid of competition. And if anything, if you're set up next to another microgreen grower in that same market and they're selling a ton and you're not, then maybe you have to think about what you might be doing wrong or what you could do better, just to kind of gain that extra advantage. So, yeah, it definitely can make things a little annoying, unfortunately. All right, Detroit Mike, what is your seeding rate for basil? So I'm going to pull that up
I use four
in
grams.
Farm Flow. Looks like Joe. Yeah, Joe uses 4 grams. I'm going to pull that up in Farm Flow. I'll be able to tell you exactly how much we use, which is the one nice thing about this software. Just have to scroll all the way down because
Well,
it's way down towards the bottom.
while Andy's
We
doing
actually use
that,
8.
yeah, I'll just say like 4 to 8 is pretty typical. Generally, with microgreens, the larger you want the leaf to be, whether it's the cotyledon or
Yeah.
the true leaf, the lower your density you want it to be. You want to give those guys enough room to really stretch out their leaves. And so the lower you go, just like red vein sorrel, a lot of people are like, oh, I sowed that at 4 or 8 grams. And it's like, no, you need 1 gram of red vein
Yeah.
sorrel. Like make that sucker stretch.
Yep.
Or even half a gram, right? If you have a scale that can go lower, like you will get better colors on your leaves and larger leaves and things like that. So definitely, like that's the general rule of thumb is the lower the density, the more room they have to spread, and the better the product will be.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a mistake a lot of people make is when they're first trying to start out, they put as much seed as they possibly can, fill the whole entire tray with seed, and then it's a total mess from that point forward. So don't ever be afraid to cut back your seeding amount. I think that's what a lot of people think. Oh, if I drop 2 grams off of my seeding amount, then I'm going to lose 50% or something of my actual yield, and it's not always the case. You want them to grow healthy, you want them to have opportunity to have airflow and be able to have room to stretch and be able to push their leaves out. So don't feel like you have to stuff those trays full of seed. You definitely do not. All right, so let's see. Sunny asks, "Where's the best place to look for local grants, and what are they looking for?" So I am lucky enough to have a grant writer on this call with us that can probably give us all kinds of great information.
Yeah, no, I served for a few years as a grant, a program director for AmeriCorps programs and a program officer, and very experienced in grant writing. My best suggestion: check with your local extension, check with your local Department of Agriculture. There may be in most states have some sort of farm and ag development centers. If you can get in with those sorts of folks, they can clue you in. The last one that every community should have to a certain level would be your small business development centers run by the Small Business Administration from the federal level. So they are very in touch with like what grants are best for you. One thing I'll say, like having like I was looking at grants and I'm like, oh, they're not free money. Like they're gonna make you do stuff, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the stuff they might make you do is gonna be out of your capacity right now, whether it's on the bookkeeping side of things. Like applying for federal grants is a ton of accounting that you like if you ever heard of 2 CFR 200, you got to go run streaming right now. So like just be aware of like what you're signing up for. It's not free money. And I've actually found a lot of freedom to just be able to take my own profits and reinvest them and just control my own finances how I need to, without being beholden to another person. That's been really liberating for me as a business owner.
Yeah, and the grants that we've won, so far, which we became aware of through our local Department of Agriculture, which I would also again, and encourage you to reach out to them and actually get on their email list as far as grants go and things of that nature, because they send out opportunities all the time. But the ones that we have won, we had to make the purchase up front and take the chance that we were going to win that money to basically pay it back. So I think we've won about maybe $10,000 in grants in the last couple of years, which sounds like a lot, but when you're really going crazy with expanding and adding massive amounts of new products and trays and racks and everything else, I mean, it doesn't
You
go
can click
very
it on
far,
camera.
unfortunately. So, uh,
I have my helper here now.
good. She's probably more qualified to talk about microgreens, I would guess.
Right. I got pictures of her too, shaking or spreading peas out.
Nice. So, and I saw a comment about Joe's YouTube channel, so I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat
And I
as
posted
well.
it
So
too.
please feel free and reach out to him on there. So let me put that out there. So it's just youtube.com/@nbarsmicrogreens. It used to be nbarsmicrogreens1, and I guess he was able to finally land that one, so you don't have to worry about doing that anymore. So definitely, go follow him on YouTube, subscribe to his channel. He posts all kinds of cool stuff. Let's see. So I can find where I was here. So there's the local grants.
It was a freeze dried one, right?
Huh?
Oh, you're good.
So Josh seeds his basil at 19 grams. Holy cow. That
I
must
hope
be
you're
a
using a paper
packed
pot
tray.
tray.
Yeah, that's insanely high. Holy cow. Oh, I see what you're asking about. Yeah. Is there a market for freeze-dried microgreens? There is, but you have to understand what's involved in even starting that. Number one, you have to buy a freeze dryer. They are insanely expensive. That's the one big downside. Plus, you have to get additional food licenses to actually be able to even do that in the first place. It's not like a one-cut raw agriculture product like microgreens are. So you may need a cottage food license. You may need a food processing license, which can lead to a lot of different things. Like for example, in our house, we actually wanted to do microgreen powder for a while, and we thought about doing the cottage food law, but you're not even allowed to have your pets in your kitchen. And our kitchen's on our first floor. Our dog has reign of the whole entire house. So, instead of locking our dog out of the kitchen just to be able to do that, we were like, it's not worth it. The benefits to it, obviously, is that you can sell it anywhere in the United States. I mean, you can sell it on Amazon. You can, ship it to anywhere. That's the one big plus, is that it lasts a long period of time. But the cost of getting started, the potential involvement from the government can definitely make it questionable as whether it's worth it. That's the one
Yeah.
downside. What do you think,
There's
Joe?
definitely a market for it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be people selling them on Amazon and other locations. But
Yeah.
honestly, like the need for a commercial kitchen and food processing licensing, yeah, like for most people, that's going to be out of the realm.
Yeah, it's a big downside, but there's definitely a market for it, without a doubt. There's plenty of people selling. I mean, you look at AG1, everybody's probably heard of them. They sell tons and tons of powder all over. They have TV commercials with it. It's not necessarily microgreen powder, but it's vegetable powder to a certain extent. So, I mean, technically, the stuff that you would be doing would probably be even more beneficial, but definitely can be interesting. For me, I prefer to try and keep the government out of everything I'm doing as much as I can. All right, so Hemplify asks, "What's a good toe in the water? I just got a rack and tray is good with going with some mixed microgreens from Lowe's. So I'm assuming you bought like a little kit or maybe seeds from Lowe's. You probably paid more than you needed to for them, unfortunately, because they usually charge a premium for stuff like that. So you may find that the amount of money you're spending on actually getting started for your seeds could be way higher than it needs to be. If you have the opportunity to buy seed in bulk, even a 1 pound bag can save you a ton of money on each tray that you actually do
Yep.
out. But I would say,
Yeah.
the general ones that you probably want to start with are going to be like your broccoli, your radish, your peas, some kind of a mix, a spicy salad mix or a basic salad mix. And then if you really want to get daring, you can get into sunflower, which is definitely going to be involving soaking, involving potentially removing seed hulls. It's a little more advanced, has more potential for mold, things of that nature. But those other four are pretty easy to get started with. What are your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean that's what I coach people or mentor people that kind of reach out to me in personal messages and whatnot. Get a couple 10-20 trays, and then the
Yeah.
4 to 5 to start with. Like I really say, like go get 1 pound of China Rose, 1 pound of Daikon, 1 pound of Rambo, And then you can mix any of those radishes to make a
Yeah.
tricolor at a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio, or you can keep them separate to grow Rambo for that chef that wants that all purple, right? Get a
Yep.
tray of broccoli, get a tray of salad mix. Junie, please stop. And then, a pound of broccoli, a pound of salad mix. And you got to remember, you're looking at 26 grams or 1 ounce of broccoli. So you're going to get 16 trays. Like, it's a good way to get a good amount out of it for starting, especially if you're starting commercially. But then with peas, go ahead and get 5 pounds of peas because you're going to be using a
Yeah.
ton of peas in a tray, right? 1 pound's not going to really cut it. You need to get more than that. And then on the
Yeah.
salad mix, my secret is go ahead and get your salad mix, but then go order a pound of wasabi or other oriental mustard green. Mix that in 1 to 1 ratio with your salad mix, and you have an amazing spicy mix. That's better than any
Yeah.
other spicy
Definitely
mix
the way
on
to
the
go.
market.
Yep. And anytime you can mix seeds before you plant, the better, because then you don't have to worry about actually mixing product after the fact. It makes it a whole lot easier when you can just plant all the seeds together. They all grow at the same rate. And they're harvested at the same time, 10 days, 14 days, whatever it happens to be. Definitely makes things a whole lot easier.
And
But
depending
yeah,
on how
very
much
good
a
point on
rule
the
follower
peas.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, depending on how much a rule follower you are, there's a lot of places where that's considered food processing to mix post harvest. So when you make one single harvest cut through 5 or 6 different varieties, it's one cut, it's one product, right?
Yep.
But then, like here in Montana, that's the way it is. There are people that mix, and like I'm not going to go there because I don't want to be on the hook for doing that with the health department, and then it's considered food processing. So just
Yeah.
gauge your level of risk and know your own rules and regulations for your locality. Because I know in places like Washington State, they allow you to layer them. You can cut one, then layer it, then cut one, then
Yeah.
layer it, and that's not considered food processing anymore. Go
Which is so
figure.
odd.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, very good point on the peas. And if you go sunflower as well, probably get 5 pounds also because you're going to be using a lot of seed. The larger ones like corn, peas, sunflower, beets, even, you're going to be using a much higher volume of seeds. You're going to go through those a lot faster, and 1 pound won't last you very long. So the bigger seeds definitely go with the 5 pound bag or a 10 pound or whatever you can get. Definitely the way to go for sure. So let's see. Next one, legendary greens. We are going to put a tray of greens in the car and drive them around. That sounds like a very uncarbon footprint friendly way of growing microgreens. All right, let's see. Kathy, the past month I followed Andy's advice and have 2 markets and a few more restaurants. Yep, Kathy is killing it down there in Southern Maryland. She's probably, ironically, Maryland's a very small state, and she's probably 3 hours at least away from me, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of insane to think, but she's pretty far away. Then Andrew, good
Well,
old Chef
I got to
Andrew from
bounce,
Homegrown Cat.
so I will see y'all later.
Oh,
And yeah,
I
have a good
appreciate you,
one.
Joe.
Yep.
Yep, you too, man. Enjoy the rest of the night. All right, so Chef Andrew, a tip for bringing samples to any restaurant, and this is coming directly from a chef, so pay attention, is to pick the right time. Don't go in the middle of lunch or close to dinner service. And I would tell people that all the time. Probably like 2 to 4 p.m. is 4 p.m. would be the absolute latest you'd want to show up. And anytime you can, try and make an appointment with a chef. Don't just show up. Don't walk through their back door. Joe would tell me otherwise because he does that all the time. But I try and be more respectful of the chef's time and efforts, and I make sure I show up when I'm supposed to if I'm going to go in there. But I always try and set an appointment. You can often do that through Instagram or reach out to the restaurant directly and find out how to best contact the chef, what their preferred method of being contacted is. Is it via text? Is it via email? Things like that. Always try and set that stuff up when you can. Definitely the best way to go. So I appreciate that, chef, very much. All right. So we got Matt. And how many restaurants are you trying to gain in this fiscal year? So for us, our number one focus right now is just getting into our space. It's been consuming my life for the last 4 months. So that's kind of our big push right now, is just trying to get into our commercial space. And then I also want to work on some farm flow improvements, obviously, throughout this year as well. So I don't know that we necessarily have a goal as much as we just want to try and come close to doubling what we're doing already, whether that's restaurants, whether it's grocery stores, whether it's distributors, or kind of a combination of all of them. Like I said, I mean, this stack of business cards that I got earlier, in the week here or last weekend, it's all a variety. I got some grocery store people out of it. I got some restaurant people out of it. I got some distributors out of it. So it's not necessarily like a goal that we set per industry, if that makes sense. We're just looking to make sales essentially, and however where we can. So, and even when we get into the new county that we're trying to move into, our plan is to really reach out to the local community and try and build more direct to customer as well. There's a lot more people in that county, so that should work out pretty good. Yep, 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. I'm not sure what that reference is. Let's see. They just stopped responding altogether. I'm assuming you're talking about the farmers market you're trying to get into. That's unfortunate. But at least I know you're out there. So hopefully, about every November, December, reach out to them again. Find out if they still have interest in potentially having another microgreen grower. You never know. Yeah, it's just one of those battles, unfortunately. It's really obnoxious. Let's see. Yep, Josh, I better decrease my seeding rate for basil. Yeah. I mean, literally 4 to 8 grams. I mean, we do 8 and it's packed. So I can't even imagine what 18 was or whatever it was you said earlier. That's crazy. I'm glad I asked the question for us both, Josh. And let's see, heading on down further. Thanks for the information. Seeding rate for nasturtium jewel mix. Oh, I wish Joe was still on here. Ask that in the microgreen entrepreneurs group, Mike. I apologize. I don't actually grow nasturtium yet. It's on my list to hopefully add this year. That's what I'm hoping to be able to put on there. I know that the rate isn't too bad, but if you search the microgreen entrepreneurs group or even the microgreen for beginners group, there's probably going to be an answer in there. I apologize. I don't know that one off the top of my head. We had a friend freeze dry our cantaloupe and it disappeared. I bet it did. Yeah, I can't even imagine what freeze dried cantaloupe would taste like. That's awesome. So good. Yeah, and Kathy, actually, we both Kathy and I got an email from Carol Allen, who's the GAP instructor for the state of Maryland, and she basically sent us an FDA link to where we actually can mix here in Maryland, which is good because we've been doing it the entire time. So it's definitely good news. And Detroit Mike just says, thanks, Joe. So that's all the questions we've got. So if you haven't already, get that hashtag thumbcast in. We're literally going to be giving away potentially a variety of different things tonight. I unfortunately didn't have the full wheel of names with all the different options on there. So I added what I could remember. So you have better chances of winning bigger prizes like 6 months to Farm Flow, a one-on-one with either Mike and I, a 3 month, free Farm Flow, the free t-shirt, the crop sheet, all that kind of stuff is still in there as well. So you have better chances instead of getting like a higher value gift, if that makes sense. Even though they're all awesome gifts, you can get some pretty expensive things out of it too. So make sure you do that hashtag thumbcast in the comments. So we'll give a few more seconds for that to do that. Yep, I see people are starting to pop it up. So Amplify got theirs in. Just Teenies Greenies. Oh, I love that name. That's awesome. Just got on a few minutes ago. Hey, John Claus is in the house. Awesome. Definitely good to we got to see him in the gap training as well last weekend. So John, welcome. Glad you could make it just in time to get your hashtag thumbcast in. And so Facebook user, whoever just posted it, this is how it's going to show up. You're not actually going to be entered. You got to go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Streamyard.com/Facebook. And make sure you connect your StreamYard to your Facebook. Unfortunately, it's just one of those stupid things we have to do. And yeah, so give it a couple more seconds here. We're up to 18 entries. Again, I have no clue how many people are watching. I don't have access to that kind of information, unfortunately. Looks like, oh, no, I do. 26. All right, so we got 26 people and only 18 entries. So come on. This is literally free stuff. Got nothing to lose here. All right, just to kind of get you moving, we're going to go ahead and bring this guy up onto the stage here to full screen. So you can see we've got 18 entries so far. So this is only going to happen for another couple seconds. Then we're going to go ahead and draw everything. So 21, Dan's saying. I'm seeing 24. Interesting. Oh, you might be on Itty Bitty Micro Farms YouTube page. They're getting 21 on there. There's a couple more coming from what looks like Twitter, and we've got some coming from my microgreens group and stuff like that. So, all right, 5 more seconds. Hashtag Thumbcast. All you gotta do is comment with that. Put you into enter to win. So, all right, here we go, guys. You know what? Before we do that, why don't you comment who you think is going to win in the comments, and don't put your own name in. And I'll go ahead and scroll through and see who I think is going to win. Oh, Terry got in last second. Good. I think you might have been that Facebook user. So hopefully that's you. Hopefully you switched over. All right. So go ahead and comment in who you think is actually going to win out of the list of people that we've got here tonight. I think it's going to be Sunny. So that's going to be my pick for tonight. I'm going to pick Sunny. So I'm going to put it in the comments as a option there. So, yep. So we got Detroit Mike is being cheered on by DeSanto Farms. Kathy's being cheered on by Detroit Mike. So Marcus, you're okay. You actually don't need Facebook to enter into the contest. All you have to do is just put in hashtag Thumbcast exactly as you are, and you'll be totally fine. Oh, itty bitty picks Tony as well. Well, it looks like Lorena, who I think won last week, if I'm not mistaken, ended up putting in Josh. And then, yeah, so Marcus, you're good, man. Nothing to worry about. As long as you put it in. All right, so we're up to 19, up to 20. Oh, Marcus, you haven't even put it in yet. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do it. All right, so good luck, everybody. Determine who the winner is. Hopefully, somebody in the comments will be right about who won. All right, Alice. Alice, congratulations. So, Alice, if you're still here, go ahead and type into the comments how many times between 0 and 20 you want us to click the mouse to actually do the wheel of names. So, if you want to go ahead, Alice, go ahead and put in a number 1 to 20. How many times we're actually going to click to determine who wins. So, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that window. Sorry, guys. I appreciate you bearing with me tonight. This is obviously a new experience for me doing all this. So, completely by myself makes me appreciate what Jess does every week for us from the producer side of things. So, Alice, we'll give you a few more seconds. Go ahead and put in a number from 1 to 20. If you don't put an entry in, I'll just go ahead and I'll click it 7 times and we'll go from there. Congratulations on that. So, you can see the things that are on here tonight. So, we've got the free t-shirt, the one-on-one with Mike, 6 months of farm flow. One-on-one with me, the crop cheat sheet, 3 months of farm flow, price cost spreadsheet, which is an awesome tool, and then 1 month of growth bites, which is itty bitty micro farms little group that they have going on there. So all great prizes to win, and all free to you if you are the winner. So Alice, if you're still there, 1 to 20, I'm going to start to think you might not still be on. So I'll give you another couple seconds here, and then we'll go ahead and click, and I'll just do 7 times and we'll go from there. So appreciate you guys, sticking around. I appreciate Joe very much for coming on and helping out tonight. It was definitely nice to have him on. It was a very last minute thing when I found out, and not quite last minute as much as poor Joe, but he ended up coming on and being awesome. So appreciate him very much. All right, so Alice, I'm going to assume you probably dropped off already, and you probably don't even know you won. So I'm going to go ahead and do 7 clicks. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so it's going to be a free shirt. Awesome. All right. So, Alice, if you're still on, you won a free t-shirt. Go ahead and email Mike at microgreensbusinesscoaching.com. So Mike at microgreensbusinesscoaching.com. So if you want to send an email to him, failed to post to Facebook. Interesting. Who knows this stupid thing? But anyway, it's in the comments. So send an email to Mike at microgreensbusinesscoaching.com and he will get you taken care of. Alice, if you're not in this country, then we can set you up with something else as well. We can set you one of the spreadsheets or whatever, but you can work that out with Mike and Jess. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. And it was definitely fun doing this by myself. I hope I did a good enough job to kind of fill in for Mike and Jess, who both do an amazing job every single week. So if you haven't joined those groups on Facebook, find them in the comments. If you haven't started a Farm Flow membership, find it in the comments as well. And if you guys need anything else, obviously find us in those groups on Facebook, and we'll go from there. So I hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you next Saturday. Take care, guys.